Good afternoon. I almost decided to go Ron Williams with good morning, and I decided that no one needs that nonsense, at least not 4 o'clock in the afternoon when there's good drinking going on. If you're not drinking, why aren't you drinking? That's my question. At least not 4 o'clock in the afternoon when there's good drinking going on. If you're not drinking, why aren't you drinking? That's my question. At least not 4 o'clock in the afternoon when there's good drinking going on. If you're not drinking, why aren't you? I hear myself there, Bruce.
Why are you hearing yourself?
I don't know. I hear myself there, Bruce.
Hold on. Why are you hearing yourself?
I don't know. I hear myself there, Bruce.
You were in a time loop.
Wow. Is that like the time warp? Never mind. That was a horrible movie. God, I hate that movie.
What movie do you hate?
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay. That's understandable.
God, I hate that movie. Anyways.
I'm not seeing the pork in it yet. We're talking about the burn pits that passed 84-14.
Yeah, it passed in the Senate, it passed in the House.
Mm-hmm. It passed the burn pit bill 84-14, extending veterans health care.
Right. Then it went to Congress and it got shot down. And some of the people who shot it down are the same people who voted for it in the fucking House. But it's irritating. But as I was saying, good afternoon. Me and Bruce are talking about something that's affecting veterans right now called Honoring Our PAC Act of 2022. Me and him are talking about, that's what we're talking about as of right now. But I want to move on to what we're actually, well, that is kind of why we're here. I'm talking to a vet about something that involves vets. So it's somewhat on topic, I think. What do you think?
I think it's pretty worthwhile just for the fact that we both know a lot of people that they served over in the shithole and sandbox, and their entire life has been changed because of it. So the burn pits, not exactly a pleasant thing to be part of. So this is a good thing. I haven't seen the bill yet myself, but I can only imagine there's a lot of pork and other items that are in it that I'm not going to appreciate.
Well, if you want to at home look into it, or Bruce yourself later on,
I plan on doing just that. I'm going to look directly into it and see exactly.
It is HR.
That's important. I mean, I don't disagree with the effect. I mean, if you served over there at a FOB and you had septic or waste items that were put to the blowtorch, and you were given 3M faulty safety gear, because 3M does a wonderful job of making PPE like China makes any product, and that's fast production, poor Q&A.
Yeah.
If you have that, and now you have cancer, I want you to get taken care of. And anybody that was service related, especially.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I said this to you before we started that, if you're a vet, I have the most respect for you. You signed and lived up to your side of the promise. It is time for the Congress and our government to start living up to theirs.
Yeah.
When it comes to VAs and other things, there is no reason why there's as many homeless vets as there are. It's absolutely disgusting. And who's ever is responsible in making this not happen, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well,
now, if you want to go to Congress, let me get this out really quick. Now, if you want to go to congress.gov, it is called the HR 3967, Honoring Our PAC Act of 2022. Give it a read. Maybe I'm missing something. I ran through it twice, and I see no reason why it should not have got passed. But, what do I know? I'm not a congressman, or I have people paying me to vote on things. I mean, lobbyists. Anyways. So, with that being said, and I'm getting off
the root of all evil in DC is the dollar.
The dollar. Yes.
I wouldn't say individual dollars bad, but I would say that the special interest groups are what is ruining American society pretty much right now.
Man, and that's a laundry list. That is a huge laundry list. It starts and ends with the word corporation, but
Yeah, and you have way too many people that are subscribed onto it. They're part of the problem, and they're not willing to try something that might lessen the load from the American taxpayer because they've got a couple 403b retirement plans, and they are really worried. They think their kids are gonna like be destitute eating fucking Vienna sausages and ramen noodles and dollar store buffet meals. Want some Salisbury steak? You said. Boy, that
yeah.
reminds me of the 1980s.
Oh my God, to become a congressman. I mean, even if you're not rich when you become one, often enough leave being in congressman with a couple million in your bank account.
I mean, AOC, she talks about being poor and Jenny from the block, but she wears like $3,100 outfits. Hey, the multi-gunman's in here. Hey, how's you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing? There's a lot of things. When our founding fathers got this started, it wasn't about who could make the fastest buck. It was about going to do what needed to be done. You went to Congress, you argued, you voted, you went back home. You didn't set up an apartment and live there. You went back to your home state. You worked whatever job you had, being a farmer or whatever. Then when some other deal came up, you went back. It wasn't a full-time gig.
Yeah.
But maybe that's too much to ask. Maybe it's too much to ask for our congressmen and ladies to actually have real fucking jobs and not just make money off the American people by telling us what we can and cannot do. I mean, that's more of a dictatorship than a democracy, but that's just me. I could be wrong.
We're getting closer to that all the time.
I'm being mouthy today. Oh my God, I'm being mouthy. Oh man. I almost feel like the old me. I woke up pissed off, had a beer, and felt better about myself. So for a recap on last time we did this, my guest today is Bruce. I'm gonna kill your last name.
Lombardo.
How do you say it? Lombaro? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, words are hard. Especially if I didn't learn from Sesame Street.
Well, I mean, when we discussed about the 90s and going to the 2000s, and the defining moments for me in my 20s are basically September of 2001. I was on vacation the week the towers fell, so I wasn't there at work screaming like we got to get rid of all these Muslims. I wasn't doing that at work. I was at home just like paging through as much internet as I could get on a 52K dial-up connection.
Yeah.
Listening to everybody talk about, this guy Osama bin Laden, who's been trying to do this before. We already had his name. Like the second tower isn't even like completely like ransacked, and we haven't tossed all the rubble yet to get all the bodies out of there. 3 hours have gone by, and we're saying Osama bin Laden, and it was just like, what? This is going on? My contract just kind of ended. That it did like about a month ago, and I'm thinking about it, and my mom's like, please don't go volunteer. This isn't your fight. You've already done a lot. And I'm like, I get it. And instead, I just went over to the blood bank and helped out over there, gave probably 5 times a month for the next 30 days, and then lessened up a little bit because I have AB positive blood, and that's really not a super normal blood type. So I did that. Say again?
That's a good for you.
That was my way of like volunteering after it all started. And then like some friends of mine, some of them were like younger brothers or sisters of our friends, and most of the Decatur crew we've got was starting to come apart at this time anyway, because Decatur was coming apart. And so I was doing more things in Springfield, Illinois, with the advocacy groups there, the gamers, and like I was putting myself in position to go to Springfield and move there, and that fell through because there was just they didn't really have an economy there except for what was going on with the local government. And you start touching those people, you start getting involved with them, and that's really not. You start looking at yourself like, I feel kind of like a dirtbag because this guy, his wife is a rep, and I know what she does. I read the paper, I know what bill she just voted on, and the more I read on it, the more I'm just getting kind of disgusted. And I went to selling cars for a little bit and did that for a season in 2003, because 2001 and 2, I was playing around at Terminix, and that was all right. 2003, I jumped around a lot on jobs because didn't really want to commit to Springfield just yet. I'm spending a lot of time there in my free time at the stores, at the game stores. Spent a lot of time with some other friends that were involved with some little bet organizations there, and those were well-minded. They had the right idea, because somebody got upset with the local VFW or the American Legion, and so I was helping out this guy with his little project, and we did some contracting work over there. And then 2003, I decided, I probably should look at something serious. So I got a girlfriend that was different than the other girlfriends I had, and she lived in Danville, and I didn't realize what a shithole Danville was.
Oh man, yeah.
We talk about Decatur, Illinois a lot.
Talk about Pekin a lot.
Yeah, Pekin. Danville, Illinois had this really bad group of people come down that really didn't have the best mindset for Danville. They were from Caprini Green, which was a housing project that got shuttered in Chicago, and a small number of them went to Peoria, Illinois, and then a big chunk of them just drove directly south into Danville, and that changed that entire city because you had an economic factor where you have a bunch of people that weren't willing to work, but they were willing to live there. And so all the jobs dried up because crime got up, and you have that in areas where you just don't have an incentive to do the right thing. Deal with it. That's kind of what it was. And the girlfriend I had from there, she was excited about the fact I was wanting to become a cop, and she's wanting to become a social worker. And next year, 2004, I committed to schooling for the next year and a half and got about 40 credit hours in over at Richland Community College in Decatur, went and did the internship with PD, and I looked like it was going to be a thing because I joined the Masons, and I was going to be one of those guys that, you join the Masons and you're in the old boys club, and I was just going to be kind of brought in. But then I opened my mouth on the internet about how I felt about Reverend Jesse Jackson, and that torpedoed me. That, Jesse Jackson's a piece of shit. That's my personal opinion. That's not the opinion of Connell. But Jackson had gotten a hold of these kids in 1999 that started a fight at a high school football game. And the town had all these people from out of town in it protesting, walking through the streets. Not like today where they throw bricks and fires everywhere, but they were just clogging up what was Broadway, now MLK Street. And it was just very hard to get around Decatur. It was miserable. And these people, this guy's making a really bad name for himself, because I have a lot of friends in Decatur, and they're telling me Jesse Jackson came to my chicken shop the other day, and he sat down and he ate, and all of his buddies ate. And I said, all right, that'll be this much money. And that motherfucker said, bitch, do you know who I am? And he walked right out. And this was happening to minority-owned restaurants in Decatur. That was the only ones that Jesse Jackson would go to, because he's just that type of shill. He's kind of a pile of shit. And I'm like, man, this is really kind of changing my perspective on things, because I didn't realize on a national level that things could get this hairy in your own area. And
Really?
Yeah.
Wait,
So
you haven't been to Peoria yet.
so
Okay.
I haven't been to Peoria yet, but I'm getting a clue. I'm getting an education in basically street economics in Decatur, and then in 2003, 4, and 5, I was working kind of in and out of Springfield, changed jobs a lot, and then just built the billet, moved up to Peoria in 6, and had a girlfriend there. Had a different girlfriend. Had a I demoted. I degraded on my girlfriend there, and I should have kept the good one from Danville, but I went over the road in part of 2006, hit a bunch of deer on I-84, and
Ouch.
when I say a bunch of deer, I'm probably saying about 30 corpses of little 50-pound mule deer. These things were just all over, and they were, when I say all over, I mean all over the truck. We had to go hose the truck off at a truck wash for about 2.5 hours, and they towed it in because the truck rolled. I mean, it was bad. So stopped traffic for about 3 hours that morning. I I got fired from that job, which was fine. You know, they said it's an act of God, but we're gonna get rid of you. Too many bad things happened to you. I'm like, bad things. Well, this driver didn't like you. Okay, well that driver sucks. Like, well, we agree, but you know, he didn't like you and you're in the training program, so we have to go with what the driver says. All right, fine. I went back to Illinois, bummed around for about a month, made my way to Peoria, got a job in Washington at a concrete mixer facility and drove a truck. And that was pretty cool. And there was another job in there that I did, but that didn't last too terribly long. That was '05, my bad. '05 to '06, I worked for Cavalier after getting fired by Prime. And then Cavalier Cartage let me go because their truck, we were driving it one night and I was telling them, like, it's really not doing well on the pre-trip. You guys should help me with this, and we need to get a new truck. And they're like, why don't you just put that truck in this garage and we'll send you a bus ticket. Okay. So I made my way out of that, and I was kind of at a low point. Got into Peoria and started bumping into people. Bumped into Garrett, met his father, met some people at the American Legion. About a 2007 is when all that happened, because me and Malin broke up, or melanoma, or whatever you want to call her. She said she was a Melinda, but she said my name is Malin, and she was one of these chicks that she liked to work out, but she also had done steroids. And then when she had done steroids and was working out, she quit working out for a while. And so what she did build up turned into fat. And so I was basically dating one of those girls you see on the internet memes that's got like the fatness and like the weird danger hair. And she's saying things like, my kids are my world and everything. You can't handle me at your worst. You can't deserve me at my best. And she was like that. And I was an idiot because I was like just kind of lonely and needed to find a place to stay. I'm so happy the wife isn't here while I'm talking about this, because she'd be getting the wrong impression here. But anyway, we were together for about 364 days. I wasn't about to make that one a year. And when we broke up, I immediately went over to the game store just for fun and announced myself as a DM, and met Carl and Robert.
Carl.
So
I honestly think I know who you're talking about. I really do, because I used to hang out there a lot by myself, just looking for something to do.
you know, Carl was one of those guys that was always looking for a game that would let him like cheese the system. He was a big D&D 3.0, 3.5 guy, but he didn't really want to play a game that was like really, you know, controlled. He wanted to be able to walk all over the DM and like, this is my character, and I've made it from these 17 templates out of these 17 various publishers that have no consistency with each other. There's no reason for them to ever collaborate and make a balanced game together. Now they're going to have some wonky ass like third party OGL shit, and that was it. You know, that was what we got to deal with. And in the process of meeting those two, bumped into Garrett, and then I, about a year later, had you in my life because we and Priscilla were a thing. And at the time, I was like, I want to kill this Andy guy, and you're like, I want to kill this Bruce guy. And then like we both upgraded as she left our lives.
Yeah, she She found what she wanted, and that was the end of it.
I wasn't really certain as to really that's what you wanted. I mean, okay, and she got some skinny little bitch that wants to go live in fucking Portland, Oregon, and throw fucking bricks at buildings. That's fine, but whatever.
Yeah, I have
And,
to say,
she sold that house, or she kept it with her brother.
well, no, she sold the house. I think the brother, yeah, the brother was actually really cool. Really fucking cool now that I think about it. Was having his own financial issues, so I'm sure selling the house would relieve some of those for him.
Probably.
He also had child support with a crazy ex-wife. So
he seemed like one of those guys that was kind of like me at one point, where like he had a high value, and if he would have stayed at his job for any length of time, it's weird because men are basically like really, we're not weak, but whenever we get into our 20s from our adolescence, we don't really have a lot of value. A woman in her 20s, as long as she's not, like with kids yet, which, okay, we're going to get into Robert Jordan territory. A woman has like a real high value until she starts making babies. And if she can't keep the baby daddy interested in a relationship with her, then the rest of us kind of discard her a bit, like, well, we know how this one's going to go. And Priscilla kind of did that. And this dude is a good example of this, because if her brother would have just stayed at his job and acquired his power slowly and gotten his influence right, he probably could have gotten over what handicaps life had set up for him. He was a nice guy.
smart enough.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. He was smart, and he literally had shot his shot with somebody that was interested in ruining him from every financial angle. From every angle, she wanted him ruined. She wanted him to be in very, very much emotional pain almost all the time, if not all the time. And it was kind of sad to see that. And me and Priscilla, we had a big discussion about it, because her brother was always a situation where when she talked about him, she'd grab her forehead and start pretending like, I have a headache starting. I don't know if she did that with you whenever the brother came up.
But it was the brother's ex-wife that got that response.
Okay. I didn't meet the ex-wife. I didn't.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't even inquire about it. I just figured, he had a kid, and it was with a psycho hose beast, and that was that. And I mean, I hate being right all the time, but when you're Bruce Lombardo, typically you're right a lot more than you want to be, and a lot of people don't like that. I've noticed that you speak truth to power, and like it gets a lot of people upset. I mean, a friend of mine was telling me today, like, I was expecting you to be 1,000 subscribers already. He said, I'm not. I'm surprised I'm still in 970s, not 950s. I mean, not that I care. My life isn't going to change. My life isn't going to radically be different. I did not win the $1 billion Mega Millions last night. I'm still upset. But
yeah, that was the first thing I read about some asshole winning, and I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Where was that? In Chi-Town, Chicago?
No, well, it was outside of Chicago, but close enough.
Okay, it's Chicago. For those of you that are friends of mine, when you hear me talk about Chicago, I'm talking within like a 25-mile radius of any 25 miles of the border of the city of Chicago, or the metro of Chicago.
I mean, there's Chicago proper, then you have all the fucking suburbs of Chicago, which there are what, 5? No, there's more than 5. There's a few.
1, 2, 3, 4 lots.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Zine?
No. Yes, once.
Okay.
Once, and that's where. Yeah.
Zine had a funny way of doing math. Whenever he was trying to illustrate to you something of a grand scale, a large number, he would go into the bunnies and burrows mathematics system, which if you're a basic mathematic rabbit, you can only count to 4. But if you are a good rabbit with at least a middling education, rabbits can count up to 8. And then they just, anything over 8 or anything over 4 for respective rabbits is lots.
Right.
So,
yeah.
this is so we meet in 2009 after like we know each other in 2008. We both lose the girl, which didn't know it at the time. It's a blessing.
I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, I can see it now only for the fact that she wanted to leave Peoria. I don't know why you'd really want to leave Peoria if Peoria was allowed to be its own city and not have the looming shadow of Chicago, looming over it. But that's kind of like everywhere in Illinois. These towns are really kick ass, but the jobs don't stick around long. So the opportunities you might be able to get temporarily are short order because, well, your taxes are being used to pay all these people's retirement funds, and they're not going to lessen up their retirements. They're not going to let the bargaining go away from these various guilds and organizations up north. So your best bet's to leave. And I hate to say that.
Well, I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, East Peoria area, and I can wait to get the hell out just because,
No,
I moved to Macomb for a short bit. I moved to Champaign. Urbana is one of the most brilliant places there are in Illinois. I can't talk highly enough about the area.
I'm going to say that if I had the money to not worry about taxation, I would probably move into Carbondale.
Carbondale's not that bad. Carbondale, oh man, Carbondale's made the Playboy magazines there for several years as the biggest party college in America for at least
Still
3 years
is.
running.
It still is one of the biggest party colleges in America, and I love
Wow.
that area. It's even though I when I go down there, like last time I was there was in 2005, mind you, but when I go down there, like most of the people that I knew, most of the faculty, they had quit, and I was only affiliated with them for the fact that I was part of the Egyptian campaign, traveling DMs that came down to run convention games, and
Yeah.
I did a lot of that. I did a lot of con games in my 20s and 30s, and then in 2009 and 2010, I was part of the what is that the convention they had at East Peoria College.
Oh,
It's no longer
yes,
there.
I was there. What the hell was it called?
And that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
J2 fucking dragged me to that one.
And we had a lot of we had a lot of time there. Heck, I ran Tolus over there for like every session of that convention. I ran Tolus, and so people would just bring a character, and their character was part of the campaign, and I had like 8 slots. Come on in. People were enjoying the shit out of it, and I mean, it was kind of like a fast game. Big Mike and he's not really big, but there was a guy named Mike, I want to say Mahalik, and he kind of got upset because I was running these games and I would have full tables and he's running One World by Night or Vampire or something or other, and he'd have like 4 people. And then at the end of the convention, he's like, Bruce, you are definitely the tabletop king because when you run a session here or at the store, you have a full table. And I'm looking at this guy with like awe and respect. Like, I've never been so praised by somebody before, but I have to tell you, Mike, you're the only DM I know that he would have you take a test before you sat down and play Middle Earth with them. And it was an open book test with a Cimmerillion.
Oh
And
God.
there were nobody ever got to be more than a gray elf. There, if you want to be a high elf, tough shit. You have to score very well. You have to know everything about the lore. And so Mahalik he was a scholar, and he's a very good dungeon master. If people are in the Peoria area and they want to play a great game, you already know about this guy. He's already talked about by all the other GMs. Fucking Baron G Rock and I and Kai, we all are like, no, we can't really equal him because his campaigns are very high quality. If you go into a dwarven ruin, be it an AD&D or MERP with him, you better have some upper echelon collegiate classes for mathematics down because all of his dwarven situations involve engineering. So you better know engineering back and forth. You better be trained well enough to have a job at Caterpillar, sort of thing. and we really enjoyed having Mike around. Mike was kind of upset because he couldn't get enough players for the table. I'm like, do you understand, Mike, that yeah, okay, that's fine. I can play good for normies at a convention, but like your table is the elite of the elite. Do you understand that? And he's like, no, not really. And his wife is like, they're like, yeah. And I said, you know, you guys, we don't get along so great. That's fine, but I respect your ability to run a table like you wouldn't believe. Because every time he'd go to the game room, he had the same crew almost all the time. You know, there was like a dedicated group of 25 people that were the older crew at the game room, which they weren't really old. They were Generation X. So they were like ages 30 to 40. And these people would come in and they would play like somebody's new game a couple times to test you out. And very rarely did they kind of bring you into their circle. And you know, you would have that occasionally, but if you ran a consistent game, you did get their respect for being there on a daily basis or a weekly basis, whatever it is that your interactions were. And when people would ask, like, hey, I want to play a game, you know, like this, and I know your guys' is full, well, go play Bruce's, go play this guy's, go play that guy's. And they would feed you players, which was really good. Because as a DM that's just trying to pass time and get things so your escapism time isn't wasted, you want to have friends like that. And I had friends like that. And then with Garrett, we started doing more and more stuff. I didn't do everything I wanted to with the American Legion because of time and money, which was always my biggest fight in Illinois, was time and money. But we did manage to do a few things right over there, and we did help a few people. And you know, there were situations where I'd be there in the middle of the night and phone would ring, and it would be one of the players I had from Decatur wanting to know what's going on. And should I move up Peoria? Why would you move up here? There's really not much going on. Caterpillar just shut down their offices after Barack Obama told everybody that we were going to have these jobs back. And the CEO of Caterpillar, about a day later or an hour later, looks at Barack Obama. I don't know what he's reading, but I can tell you those jobs aren't coming back. And do you remember that?
Yeah, my grandpa was a union man there in the 80s and 90s for Caterpillar, striking downtown Peoria because all the jobs were going over, cheaper overseas, not over,
We had
where
to
we
fight for
go.
the jobs were going cheaper overseas. We had a lot of jobs get shipped down to Peoria, from Peoria into Victoria, Texas, which
Right.
I did a couple of runs for that when I was doing flatbedding for Cavalier in 2006. I didn't really understand why that was going on, because you had in Peoria a large number of infrastructure waiting for big heavy equipment work. In fact, isn't that where they made the world's biggest dump truck?
Yeah. Yeah, I've
Okay.
seen it twice.
Yeah, and that thing is a massive beast of a truck. I mean, I, it's you can't cart it except by like two helicopters if it has to go airborne.
I think it's over in Mossville right now. Yeah.
Mossville, okay. You're saying little country names I haven't heard in over 10 years. I don't remember where Mossville is.
Mossville is all right.
No, I know where Mossville is.
Okay.
I like that area. Don't get me misconfused. I really enjoyed Peoria, Illinois. It was heartbreaking to watch it like dry up around there.
It's weird because Caterpillar, and I know we're still on the point of Caterpillar, but Caterpillar decided to move all its jobs back to Peoria, Peoria would have filled each and one of those jobs easily.
For what?
If the Caterpillar decided to take all the jobs and bring them back to America to do what President Obama was talking about.
Most of the jobs didn't leave America. There were some that did, but there were a lot of jobs that got shipped down to Mexico, and then they came right back into the States because their safety protocols were making it really hard for them to work and be able to produce things. In order for them to be able to pay insurance, they have to have products. Whenever you're having people that are getting killed on job sites because there's no safety gear or there's no guards in place when you're on a machine, that
Yeah.
that kind of impacts it, and that was Caterpillar's major problem they had, from what I was always being told by my friends at the table, because there was a few people at the game room that were Caterpillar employees, and they weren't really super high on the list. I mean, you had, of course, the crippled Mike, and he would always talk about the things going on that he knew about because it made him feel important, and he could always hold that over you. That was something he really enjoyed doing that, and he really did. I mean, what a what a self conscious prick, but he he really enjoyed having knowledge that other people didn't have because they either didn't read the news or they didn't have a friend that was in his office or whatever. And he was a miniature painter full time now because he's unable to walk. He's getting closer to being in a wheelchair, which is what he is in now. And he had nothing else to do with his life. He's getting towards that point where you're dead man walking.
Yeah.
He couldn't, military calls that dead man walking syndrome, whenever you're unable to stand on your feet for any length of time. And I didn't see a lot of that until after I came down here to Texas for a little bit, and one of the local hospitals got my number for Uber drives. But I'll discuss that later. But you bump into all these people that whenever they get so broken, like their time in the military, their paperwork is being funneled from one office to another office to another office, and it's just a matter of days or weeks until they're processed out and given their DD-14 medical severance, and have fun. We hope that technology improves before you die, but you will probably die in pain. And
Yeah.
that was about it. That's something that, if you continue this series of talking to vets about your time in the military and how gaming affected you as a person, you're going to hear this occasionally. And it's something that I think that it gets repeated a lot, because we send these guys to areas that we really don't have a good interest in. Like, I'm just going to say it. As much as people don't like fracking, I can tell you that Texas fracking would probably take over any oil production that could happen in the Middle East, because we did that in 2014 and 15. We had produced so much oil that the barrel price fell down to $19 a barrel. If you've ever played the game Power Grid, which is my favorite game for teaching people the basics of economics and supply and demand, as the months go by where you're using a commodity and there's not enough of a supply of it, the commodity gets more expensive. Whereas other commodities used to power these power plants are getting cheaper and cheaper. So you're having things like garbage, which is super cheap, but you have to have a power plant that can be fueled with garbage. Whereas people are using coal and oil, and those things are skyrocketing. Well, in America, in Texas, at the very least, if we went full bore with natural gas and oil here, we wouldn't have to worry about what we're going through right now as a nation. And I got to see that later on after I moved here. But while I was in Peoria, I kind of started seeing that just as in the distance, because people were talking about oil production in Texas. And I'm like, I lived in Texas for a little bit. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast there. And my friend's like, if you like it so much, why don't you just move there?
I was not the person who said that, by the way. I
I know.
I would have
Not,
kept you in
not,
Peoria
a
as long as I
single,
could.
not a single person who played in my Pathfinder game from 2007 till now has ever said, if you like it somewhere, why don't you just move there? Fuck, every time I start talking about something like that, even the guys that are local here that don't show up at my table, they show up on stream. They're like, you're not thinking about moving, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm really not. But it's kind of weird. And Multi Gunman's like, Canada and USA have enough oil to support ourselves and the exporters. We could be exporters again, but we're kissing the Saudis' assets to import oil, and that's next level retardation. Exactly. It pays. There's no intelligent way that you can try to frame an argument saying it's better for us to just buy from Saudi, because Saudi's oil production is about 1970s or 1960s level America, and they don't care. They don't have the same rules and regulations that we have here for safe and dependable and EPA. They don't have an EPA in other countries. They only have an EPA here. So if you complain about smog, I'm going to tell you, yeah, smog sucks, but probably not completely within the city you're living in. You have places called India and China, which don't have smog controls. Look at their skylines. Look at their mornings. Look at the fact that you can't see the buildings. You just see this big cloud wafting up from the roadways.
Fucking soup.
Mm-hmm. So, 2008 and 9, I was getting friendly with Garrett and his wife at the time, his second wife. And as a DM, I'm just going to say that I like Garrett a lot. I really do. I kind of pissed him off by beating up on Brother Ronaldo a bit in our games. Um, but I took way too much joy in torturing Becky by giving her opponents that were out of melee range and watching her cry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So
Yeah, I like you do that.
I really enjoyed that. I did. And at the time, I didn't get along so well with Garrett's now third wife. I don't expect Garrett to get married a third time. I think this is his final one. He's got things going on, and they love each other.
Which is important.
That's like the one thing. Like if Garrett ever feels despondent or bad, I want him to be able to understand this from me. Yeah, you lived a life I probably wouldn't have done myself, but in the hunt for you to be happy, you got it. From all outside perspectives that Bruce sees, your third wife that you got, she fucking loves you, dude. She loves you. She's so happy to have you. And you guys are good together. Like that right there, I fucking hope that if we could just live forever, that would be your outcome. And they live happily forever after. Because that's what you really want. And you know, I applaud the guy because he tried a lot of things. And we all fail at things. We all succeed at things if you try hard enough. And at Love, the guy just knocked it out of the park finally. And when I first met her, I didn't really like Ashley so much. I didn't really trust her so much. I mean, it took me a while to get used to her and him being a couple. But,
Right.
you know, I'm not the one fucking her. I'm not the one in that relationship. And it wasn't my business. But I'm going to tell you, as Garrett's friend, as long as those two get along great, God, I hope it continues to last. You know, and I know it's not going to be easy. They've both got problems on the horizon, but fuck, they've got a better job of getting through it than a lot of other people I know because they love each other, and that's something that a lot of vets they don't have. A lot of vets don't have a good spouse like that. So, you know, I mean, you can take that for whatever you want. It's going to be one of those things where you know he's going to have some support from us because he's going to go through his own trials, and God, it's going to suck to watch him go through that, but we'll be here. And I can't wait for the day where he actually is on in this little hot seat with you, where he's discussing things in his life and how gaming and military life kind of affected him. Because one is, you know, military, that's kind of a choice you make when you're a young man, and it's a choice you'll carry with you the rest of your life. And then the hobby of gaming, it's kind of a series of instructional videos that you're taking place in, and then you have them for recall for the rest of your life. Because the hobby, the various games that are in the hobby, board games, RPGs, all that, but all of them build and help you build as a person. Because you can take lessons from silly, stupid little games, like I was talking about Power Grid earlier, or like I was talking about AD&D whenever we were doing that before I moved out of Decatur. You know, the various things that we were pushing on our players for them to achieve. Not what was, you know, kill a monster, save princess, but other things. Trying to get people at the table just to get along for 6 or 8 hours is a bigger fight for the DM than for the players to do anything else.
Yeah.
So, it just you have a lot of good lessons that come out of this hobby. A lot of people will ignore a lot of them because they don't want to think about that. They don't want to put themselves in a perspective where I'm going to push myself into my thinking man's chair, and I'm going to see what I can try to figure out about these two characters that don't really get along too well, and why is it that we still have them both at the same table? And how can I just make it easier for everybody so we can all get along well? And I'm not asking for everybody to, go down the journey with me of there's three basic kinds of people. There's dicks, there's assholes, and there's pussies. I'm not asking that. I'm asking people just whenever you sit down for a game, like, you got to figure out, how am I going to get this table to be constructive enough to where we can have an organized game. We're not a bunch of assholes just looking at memes on our phone, hoping the game starts soon. And that's something that sometimes you have, and sometimes you have that in spades, and other times you really fail. You've put together a group of people that don't really want to game. They just want to hang out. They just want to listen to music or share tunes or do stuff. And I know you've had that happen with you before, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I mean Jade's rating system is actually really on the ball when it comes to players that we want at the table.
I'm not going to give validation to his system just for the fact that I don't want to start labeling my players.
I think labeling is bad for the most part, but I should rephrase this. I agree with his rating. I wouldn't, because we've all seen it. We've seen players that really want to be there, that have their nose, into the game so far that you don't know where one ends and the other begins, and you got other players, that why did I even bother asking you to come?
Yeah, and I had that happen a couple times. There was one character that I tried to befriend, Capron, and I had to put him next to people because I couldn't trust his rolls. He would roll on his fucking keyboard, natural 20, natural 20, fucking 5 times in fucking one combat, natural 20. Really, dude? And it wasn't an honest roll. He's just throwing you BS. Do you believe it and roll with it, or do you let the person next to him rat his ass out? And then we kept him at the table instead of booting his ass. And there was a period of time that got really interesting. It was after the Priscilla incident, as I called it, where me and Capron were kind of interested in this one girl, and she lived with me first, and then she moved out and was with some other people, and he was trying to be with it, and they went to a movie house together, and they had like a movie house in Peoria where like you could lay down on couches, I guess.
What the fuck is this?
I don't know. Like, I'd have to ask John Leah, and she was the one that saw this. And when I got the report back, because I was at the store, and like I kind of torpedoed his vampire game one night because I was gonna share Mondays and let him run one week and I'd run the next. But his vampire game he ran really sucked. Like, it was a lot of no player agency, a lot of DM fiat, a lot of DM NPCs, and I wasn't enjoying myself. I can't imagine other players enjoying it because he starts insulting the other table players like Garrett and
shit.
I call her Jenna Leah because I forget what Ashley's name is in real life sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's because of COVID or what, but I'm just saying that, like, he was insulting both me, Garrett, and John Lee all at once, and he's upset with the fact that we came up with a good plan to beat his first entry level module, and Emma was kind of hanging on him at the store table, which I didn't really care about because, he's a big guy, and I'm really much thinking like, well, he's got like this super blubber bowl of fat, and he probably has a 1-inch pecker. I didn't really care, but then she's hanging on him, and I guess one of the guys said, "Hey, you worried about her hanging on him?" I was, "No, I don't care." And then a week later, we're at the store again, and me and her, we haven't talked all day. We haven't talked for 2 days. She hasn't been at home. And then they're like, "Hey, she's with him right now." I said, "Okay." So I packed up her stuff, and I put it outside and contacted her stepdad, like, "Hey, let your stepdaughter know about this. And it was gone by morning. And then the next day she came and she stole all my sea bags. So when Garrett shipped me those blue sea bags that he gave me about a month and a half, 2 months, no, about 6 months ago, that was great.
Was that the blonde with glasses?
What?
Was that the blonde with glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Little slender thing, real shapely, but like serious addiction problems. And once I was with that, like I met her friends for a little bit, and all of her friends were from these AA groups or NA groups. And I bumped into a few people that, like, at first when they found out I was DM, they're like, "Hey, we gotta hang out. I love D&D." And then you start discussing more things with them, and I'm finding out that this isn't a cool group of kids I want to have hang out with me in my own house because shit will turn up missing. And I didn't realize that at first, and she's wanting to bring people over and all that, and then her and Catherine start fucking around 2 weeks later. It was just a fucking show. And she didn't the death knell of that relationship, thank God for this, she didn't get along with my best friend Chuck at the time. And when Chuck and her didn't get along well, that was kind of like, okay, I know what's going on here. Because she wanted to change me or not even acknowledge me with the things I was wanting to do. She was only there because it was a roof over her head. And it was a better idea if you can recognize that from the start, or at least at the start of the relationship, rather than going through that. And I recommend any guy, that's like thinking about shacking up with somebody, you may want to think this through a little bit before you get involved with somebody pretty heavily, because it will follow you. You might make decisions that, you got to pay for a child the rest of your life. The good thing with you is that, you get along well enough with your baby mama. I mean, not all the time, well enough, but you at least get along well enough with her to where you got your daughter with you. And drama.
But my situation is the one thing I can say about my ex-wife is she is a wonderful, wonderful mother, and I
was jealous of you. One of the jobs I had, I was a meat cutter, and bumping into you two in East Peoria at the Kroger, I was just like shocked, like, fuck, you can bring that to the table? There's hope for me.
Oh, gee, thanks, I think.
No, I mean, it was, I'm not trying to slam you, but it kind of echoed with the things I found out later, where, like, if you're a guy and if you just allow yourself to make mistakes and learn from them, the important part is you got to learn from mistakes.
Oh yeah.
If I didn't do that, if I would just keep my nose to the grindstone, I will get what I want. And like, as a man gets older, typically, like, your influence, your reach, your ability to generate funds, all these things improve much more than what you have a real capable idea of how much you can make. Because that really isn't limited by the government or anybody else, but it's limited by you. If you have a badass idea and you run with it, if you are able to make it to where it's talked about, and we have too much social media nowadays, but if you're able to make things happen,
right?
If you're able to get people interested and you're able to sell yourself, or if you're able to do a job and people need it, you're going to be fine. Like, if I would have known in my 40s, like, I'd be a shit pumper, I'd be a plumber. If I knew that in my 20s, I would have gone this route sooner, because I'm seeing how much it can affect me. And all I need is just the market to fucking relax for a second.
You could have had a decent run in Illinois as a plumber.
I probably could, but I still would have been overtaxed.
Unions, I don't know about down in Texas, but most of the plumbers I know of, that I know like 2 plumbers, and they're part of the union.
Yeah.
And they got nice houses. I mean, nice houses.
The plumbers that stay away, and I guess I'm going to broaden this statement, people who are good with their jobs and good with their discipline, they don't get involved with a lot of vice. They don't get a lot of things going on, like every other weekend I spend my nights at the strip joint, or I go down to the neighborhood bar and I drink $70 worth of alcohol a day. You know, they if they keep themselves on the move and they're pushing towards a goal, they can end up really well. Between interest on your investments, if you properly invest and things don't fuck you, and the fact that you're just getting better at your job, you're better at your trade. I think I think a lot of guys just need to hear that and they need to see that. And we're hitting a period of time where that might not be a thing. You know, that it's becoming harder to become successful because it's just being more burdensome when you go to the store to pay, $400 for 2 weeks worth of groceries. Who the fuck wants to do that?
Well, I'm about ready to say something that's going to be fairly unpopular. Is don't send your kids to college. No, send them
You're
to a
not
trade
hurting
school.
my feelings on this.
Send them to a fucking trade school. They'll thank you later for it. But mommy, I want to go to college. No, honey, no, you don't. You want to go to a trade school. As soon as you're done with the trade school, you can go out and start your job. The moment you start your job, you get grown up money. When you have grown up money, you can start having grown up fun. And if you wait long enough to the time to have kids, you could actually have a lot of things that you want now. If you give it a few years later, and still have a good life down the road with kids and slash husband or wife.
I would disagree with you only on one aspect of that. I would I would tell a young kid, okay, go to trade school, start your trade, then start making your moves to put yourself in a place to where you can handle having a family, and find yourself your spouse, and then just start having kids because it's going to suck. No matter what, when you have kids, you're never going to have enough money. You're always going to be stretching your your budget. You're never going to make all your ends quote unquote meet. But family's going to help you out, especially if you've got like two or three. You've got a cousin that she'll let you have like the hand me down clothing from their initial whatever, and you'll have that. Go with that if you want to have a family. Have them fairly young, because I'd rather be my age and kicking the kids out the door than be my age and getting into a new relationship.
Let's
Okay.
see. I had Maggie when I was 26.
Yeah. And
Maggie's
you're
12.
closer to 18 than you are 47 at 26. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I had in my had drilled even my grandparents and my aunt. Now that I think about it, you can't get married till you're after. You can't get married until you're after you're 25. Can't have kids until after you're married. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. So it was very much when I turned 25. It wasn't that I was looking for marriage. It just kind of happened. But I was already past the
You
goal
already
mark.
passed that window. You were in the window for it.
Right.
And
And
let's not dally about that, because you had at the start of it all, you had a really good go, and it's not your fault that that one really fell apart. It
and
is you're a participant, but you weren't the catalyst for it. Okay, you did everything you could to try to stop it, to save it, to put the brakes on, and the takeaway is that you did yourself some good favors. You didn't throw her off a balcony.
I thought about it.
You
I
you
mean, I didn't say that.
yeah, you kept her. You let her do whatever, but you became a good father in the end, and Mags is going to be a fucking kick-ass adult when she gets older, dude. You're
Oh, yeah, Maggie. Maggie. Unfortunately, Maggie is inherited my mouthpiece. So it should be interesting. Um,
um I came to a hit point of financial distress in 2010, after me and Emma split up, after she went about her addiction ways, and I'm trying to figure out how can I make this work, because I've already been fired from a really good sales job, and I did some other sales jobs that were not so well paying. I even
hmm.
got people hired there at
Was that
Universal
the place in Peoria by the river?
Universal Adcom, which they're not really open anymore, from what I can tell. And I was working at every other place that let me have a phone, and because I have a decent voice, if if I really focus on using my voice, I can almost get whatever I want from a customer. And I was noticing I can use that trick about 1 in 10.
Right.
And I was using, they were kind of amazed at AdCom. I was pretty good with it. And I got fired because me and Priscilla just couldn't be in the same room together, whatever. I don't give a shit. And then later they come crawling back. Hey, will you come and work for us? Really? And I should have taken it, but I didn't. Because who knows what would have happened. But I make my way down to Texas in the next 12 months because I just couldn't get it going. And I felt like retreating. I felt like a general who had been on the offense for years trying to push something, trying to push a rope uphill, and I couldn't make it happen. I was just failing at everything. I still had a really badass apartment. I had a, no, that's not big for some people, but I was able to pay for my little $435 a month apartment, which was a 2,000 square foot apartment, I might add. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a picky bastard when it comes to buying a new home, because I know what the front room needs to look like. But I need enough room for my fucking table.
Yeah, I remember I was at your apartment here in Illinois once, and that was a gorgeous setup you had, as you know.
And I loved it. And I had to leave that. I had a bunch of friends that I left behind in Illinois, and I felt like I had really hit the end of the rope because everything had such a bitter taste to it. I mean, every job I was applying for, after 2 or 3 days, they, withdraw the offer, or I get hired on, and then they ask me something like, "What do you think about Connecticut? We're moving to Connecticut." I had another job. They wanted me to move out to Montana, and Montana is really not a place I want to be. It's nothing against Montana, because Montana is beautiful.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
It's not that nothing there, because we would have been stuck in Butte, Montana, which there's a nice civilization there, and you can enjoy yourself in Butte, Montana. It's not a foodie town like some parts of Lincoln, Nebraska, or what's that place in South Dakota, Cedar Rapids.
Oh yeah.
But I'm telling you, like, I would have been in Montana, and I don't think I would have enjoyed it, because in February of 2011 we had the snow. Fuck everybody in the head. I got snowed on. I got so much snow. I couldn't get out.
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of my apartment. I was on US 150.
Yeah, I know. I remember. That was 2000. You said 2011? Maggie was just born.
2011?
Yeah. Maggie was just born, and me and Karan just kind of woke up and looked outside. It was like, well, I'll get the coffee maker going because we're not going anywhere.
So I'm in Illinois, and I'm trying to wonder, like, I'm going nuts, and I saw my out of doors for like 4 days. For 4 days.
Didn't game get canceled?
Like a video, like one of my videos I had on let me pull it up, and you can just skim through it real quick.
Was that when you had a picture of a black dragon and a white dragon fighting, or a blue dragon and a white dragon fighting in the snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I was pissed because I was stuck dealing with this shit in Illinois. I never, like, all my buddies were like, "Hey man, you ever want to come back to Illinois?" No. And this is why. Come on, boot up.
Well, trust me, if you told me you're moving back up to Illinois, I'd be fucking thrilled. I know Baron would be. I know most of Table Breaker, except for Shadow, would be thrilled.
Yeah. Let me see. Share that. This. Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm adding it to screen. God, we were so much younger then.
Yeah, that's all that's around me. This was a full month. And
Yeah.
like we just opened that highway 6 hours before.
Kingmaker. Yeah. Kingmaker. That was Kingmaker era.
So anyway, that was a real pill that like I'm living in Illinois and I can't make my way out of here. And then I start talking about it with my parents. I'm like, I gotta move. I talked about moving away because I don't like winter. And you guys are all butthurt, like, I can't believe you want to move away from this. Go fuck yourself.
You know,
I'm not a guy that's like I don't get really wussy in the wintertime. I'm gonna say that. I'll go out
right.
and shovel snow. I don't have a problem hitting, physical labor activities, especially now. Now I've gotten so used to it. I'm in my 40s and approaching a big 50, and I'll do it. Fine. Okay, let's go take care of this because once it's done, it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
But a lot of people they put limits on themselves and they don't recognize like physical labor is really fucking beneficial for you. They don't get that. They don't ever hear that. They don't ever have somebody tell them, if you don't do this, you're just gonna be a pussy. All right, whatever. So I I deal with winter, and then after that, I was talking to my cousin, and she's like, "You can come on down. My husband just left, so that's actually going to help out quite a bit because I need somebody to drive my daughters to school." And so in May of 2011, I moved down to Portland, Texas, which is right outside of Corpus Christi, and I was I was living the barbecue life, and a lot of my Facebook for probably 3 to 4 months was nothing but Bruce in front of the grill because that was what I was enjoying on a daily basis. It was really hot, but we had this breeze come off the bay, and so it cooled you down to like 95 or 89 degrees, and it was a wet breeze. So you would enjoy yourself to a point, but it was still hot. If you went inland, it got worse, and so I didn't really do the inland thing for the first year, and I had this nice setup. My cousin and I we get along well, and I was starting to put my life back together after the move, and started a job, which was more phone sales. Don't do that. Don't stay out of phone sales work. Stay out of advertising over the phone, and
Yeah, you tell me that now. I got a few stories.
yeah. Don't do that. That's a poor choice, especially if you're a man and you can move around. You want to stay moving. But
Yeah.
he, I did this job, and while I was doing that, I started seeing things I was really good at, and I wanted to get back and do them. Like I wanted to work out again, and I got kind of fat working at that job. I'm still kind of fatter than what I used to be, but I'm not upset about it because I can accept it in the fact that I'm getting older. I'm not 20 years old. That's the hardest part about getting older is when you're in your 40s or 50s and you're watching all the people that taught you life skills, they're dying off. They're just falling over. I've got to go here for this funeral. I've got to go there for that funeral. And it's a heartbreak to read about this stuff on the web, and that seems like the only feed I was getting on Facebook when I was down there was like this relative died, that relative died, this person died, and it being away from it all insulated me a little bit. But when I would come up to visit family, it was the hardest thing was realizing, oh crap, I did read about them dying. And then like it would hit you because you'd go to their house or you'd see their wife or kid and you get like an accusatory face like, how dare you not come up to the funeral? You're not even a close friend, but how come you weren't there? And they're still in their mourning process and you don't realize that. And it was just one of those lessons that I learned a little bit, and I kind of prioritize people. Listen, if you're not related to me, I'm not going to come to your funeral. I'm not I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do everything I can not to be at your funeral because I already told you how I want to live, and I'm down in Texas. 3 of my friends from Illinois came on vacation with me at different times. And then I have my parents, which I've housed in various condos along the coast when I was in the oil field. That was something I really enjoyed doing. Was when I'd take vacation, I'd just go to Port Aransas, buy a condo for a week, get mom and dad a condo down the block from me that's dog friendly because they have a dog, and you have those opportunities, and you can connect with family again. But it's really weird because it's like you're taking a vacation of a vacation, and your parents are saying things like, "This person's gone, or this person's dead, or these things have changed in our hometown," and it seems like a dream because I lived in this town for 30 years, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't sound right. It's not consequential until you put your feet on the ground and get your boots there. And then whenever you're there talking with family and hearing the stories or whatever happened, that was when it was hitting me. And I didn't really prepare. I don't handle the loss of relatives or family very well. I can handle getting older a little better than what I used to because I've started getting more physical with my life, but it took me it took some hard lessons with that because nobody really tells you when you're a young kid, like, you want to stay working out, you always want to stay active. And they might tell you that, but your head's priorities are things like, I want to play more video games. I want to eat more bacon. I want to do more things that make me happy as fuck. I see on the internet, like, I want to be like Deadpool, make chimichangas. You see you're doing those things that
Right.
that you enjoy. But when it came time to dealing with family after I moved down to Texas, like, that was the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn because, like, I'm basically in a time warp situation where I'm stuck in time because whenever I think of home, I have the memories of where everybody lives and where everybody does, and at certain times of day, here's where that can be found, and that's how that is. But when I would go venture home physically and things were changed, my brain had shielded me from a lot of that initial grief of their passing or their loss. And it wasn't until, like, I've got my knee on their headstone and I'm going, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with you like this. And that's the worst part about it. Getting older and, like, not being there for somebody, only having, like, Skype conversations or FaceTime conversations with somebody that, used to live 20 minutes out of your way, and then one day you're no longer able to have that because they've died. And so you've got to figure out, what am I going to do this time? I'm usually on my way home. I talk to this person or I listen to that person. And in from 2014 to 2020, I hit a good low point where all of my grandparents died, one
Damn.
one by one. The I mean, my paternal grandmother on my mom's side, she was the only member of that family that I knew of that coupling. My grandfather on mom's side, I didn't know, but mom says he acts a lot like me because he wanted to play his games, he wanted to drink his beer, he wanted to go to work and come home. And the family is kind of like it's an ancillary thing, it's an auxiliary thing. Like, I focus on making money and doing stuff. The wife handles the kids, and that's why that relationship broke up. And both of them were fucking drunks, and then the kids got split up, and just all sorts of fucked up shit. And then my dad's side of the family, that was a real tight knit group because they're Italian, and they like their wine, but they valued being together all the time. In fact, that was something that is in the passing of my grandfather on the obituary, which saying that still fucks with me because my grandfather Sam Lombardo loved nothing more than to get family around and get in front of the grill and just entertain and provide. That was a big point of pride for him, which I kind of see that in myself because I've noticed that with me. Whenever we're out grilling, if it's me and friends or me and coworkers, in the oil field, you grill out a lot. If you go to work in the oil field as a frac crew, uh, grills are cheap and steaks are plentiful. Like, they're not inexpensive anymore, but you can afford them because you're paid a lot of overtime. You're paid 40 hours of overtime on a check. Sometimes on a 2-week basis, you'll have 80 hours of OT. So you're going to have a lot of money to
Right.
read the way you want. And I was, in the most part, in pretty good shape for most of this. I've dropped weight since last year. I need to keep on it, keep at it, and not dally, not let myself get weak on that aspect. But we're working on getting the handstand down. I don't. That's all I'll say. But we, whenever my grandfather was alive, that was something that he always would take the grilling tools and he would have them in his hands. And the kids really didn't do that too much. His youngest son died at the age of 27, but my Uncle George was a hell of a grill master. He worked at a place in Decatur behind the grill, and we ate there quite a bit when I was growing up until he passed. But that was, that was good memories. And, here I am in 2014 and, grandfather dies, then grandma dies in 2016. And that was fucked up because, like, I found that out because I checked on Facebook one day after I get home from doing my runs. I was doing Uber for a little while between oil field stints. And it didn't pay me horribly. It just destroyed my cars. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You never get the money you're really due for car maintenance on Uber. I'll just say that right there out loud. And
it needs to be a brand new car. I don't want to put that many miles on a brand new car. Why can't it be that car?
Right.
Yeah.
The first night I did it, I did like 240 miles. And then there was one night that I went in and Lackland was in 2017. My grandmother was on my mom's side. Her foster grandmother was getting really ill. And so I started trying to figure out a way to save up money, but I couldn't because I'm, putting it into car maintenance. And, the jobs were not really that good up until February of that year. But I went to work and I get this job from Lackland. It takes me from Lackland AFB up to Dallas. So that's like 5 hours of drive time. And they didn't have limits on drives. They didn't have a 4-hour time limit that they do now. So I just drove all the way up to Dallas and dropped off this young airman at his mom and dad's house. And he got to be with his grandfather. The Red Cross had notified the family, said, grandfather's dying, come. And that was when I got buzzed from Lackland, and the kid had put mommy's credit card in. And so Bruce did a 9-hour round trip. And I had to wait like an hour to get paid on that job. As I passed through Waxahachie, I got paid. And then by the time I got back home, like I was just ready to go back to bed again. But I had made like $300 some odd, and I only spent maybe $60 in fuel.
Wow.
Not even that. I think I was paid like $40 because it was like $1.67 for fuel at the time. So I was doing pretty well, and I mean that's why I drive Civics. But I really enjoyed that gig, and me and that kid had a good long conversation about what we're talking right now. When you're a young man and you have your grandparents available, and you don't spend enough time with them, or you want to go play with your toys instead of spending time with your grandparents, go spend time with your grandparents. They're not going to be here forever, and nobody. I watch other people's grandparents die. Just never sunk in because I'm an idiot, and I'll even state that. But we, after 2019, my last grandparent died, and for about a year I was in a funk while I was trying to get things worked out. And in 19, I also left the oil field because there's just only so much you can do when you're riding the oil field wave, and it'll sometimes drop and you go to work and your work says turn in your uniforms. Fuck.
It's like a bubble. Like if you do the stock market, I found that it's somewhat like a bubble. As long as the bubble's going, everybody's making money. The bubble pops, We might have something coming here in a few weeks. We'll keep you in line.
Yeah, and with us, they didn't even give my fleet that opportunity. They just fired us.
Oh fuck!
We were all dismissed because we had pissed off Houston corporate, and I was also just recently suspended for a week, which I'd gone up to Illinois during my suspension because I have to go bury my grandfather. And I had a diversity hire that I was fighting at my job because this guy thought he was something special. I'm a black man. There are no other black men at this job. I'm like, I don't care what color you are. You're a piece of shit. And we need to discuss your ability to do your job because I need to get these parts for my trucks so I can get it back on the road and get them delivered to the job site. We can frack. That's how this company makes money. If you're not willing to be a dispersing clerk and give me the items which I need, we're going to have a problem. So he wrote an email and I got suspended for that. And so afterwards, I didn't ever have a real nice way to describe this guy, but they tried getting me suspended another time because I had a brief encounter with him. And I said, dude, you're not special. I wish you'd stop acting like you were. He's like, you know who I am, right? I said, I don't care. And outside this building is where you fear to go when I'm here. And he realized that. And I'm like, we're going to talk. This is Pleasanton. We're fucking 30 minutes away from San Antonio. It's nothing but scrub and rattlesnakes. And we had real issues because that guy just he wanted to have his ass kissed at work all the time. And I'm like, you're not fucking special. You're a goddamn diversity hire. You have a degree. Congratulations. But your performance sucks. And my supervisor saw this interaction and tried to work with him a little bit. And the guy was acting like a prima donna. My supervisor was there. And then Human Resources said, can you give him another suspension? He's like, what? And it was just a weird interaction because for the majority of people I dealt with at my job, they were mainly Hispanic.
Right.
The second largest demographic was white men. And then you had black men. And those were how the demographics play out. You have a 70% here, you have a 14 or 16% for white men, then you have 10% blacks, and then you have 5% other because you're going to get your Filipinos, you have a few Chinese people, a few Japanese people, and that was majority of ways it worked at C&J. And during that time, we were paid really well just to put up with each other, just to build oil fields and, knock equipment together so we could pump. That's what you're doing. That's what we're paying you to do. And I finally got that after I was in the oil field and on my way out of it, and my coworkers were like, man, you're going to miss the oil field because you really did like this job. I said, yeah, I will. I will miss this job, but I'm not going to miss the anxiety that you have where like your job is going away. And they just laid us all off because we outperformed their pet crew out of Midland. And they were really upset because they had a crew in Midland that was supposed to be bunch of super frackers, and we were able to show them how to frack faster and how to do it more efficiently with less people.
Right.
So once we were escorted to the door at C&J, I left that and I did just Uber for the rest of 2019. And during that time, it was gaming that pretty much is what saved me from a bad end because I had this depression that hit. I don't have a grandfather to talk to anymore. Most of my friends aren't really going to understand this because they've not lived the Rag Roach's story. They've mainly been just rags, and I've gone through multiple bouts with the oil field, and when I'm in it, it's great. Steak dinners and fucking whatever you want to eat, and buy whatever at Sam's or Lowe's or whatever. When you're not in it, it's like I just got to buy the essentials and some lettuce. I'll be fine. And that's kind of what happened that second time around. And I'm fighting that. I don't have a grandfather to talk to, and just hash this out and get my head straight. And finally, customer I had one night, we had to go from here to Georgetown, which is on the north side of Austin, about 2 hours away. And the route that I was going to take was not the best route. I found out later. On GPS mapping at this time, they don't have all the newfangled things where they show you where the construction's at, and they don't tell you it's a half hour shorter, even though we have the best broadband in the fucking state down here between San Antonio and Austin is great. But me and this guy, we have to take this long drive, and we have a big long discussion about what it's like to be a man in his 40s. And when you start trying to get your head out of the funk when you've just been at a bunch of every time you see family, you're there burying another one. And so he gave me his card. He was a psychotherapist, and we had a few discussions. And he also served, so he kind of helped me get my head in order by just letting me talk about the various things and problems we face as men. And he didn't really add a whole lot to my life, but he gave me an outlet to let me mourn. And it was during that time that I finally picked up this job that I have now. And thank God for the company I work for. I mean, fuck. I mean, Friday I spent most of Friday morning at a mechanic shop, hanging out with a mechanic, trying to chase down an oil leak when we fire pressure on the truck. And that was like my morning. 106-degree weather inside the shop because the fans don't work and the building sweats and it's just oppressive as hell. And then pulling the truck out and getting a fan put onto us so we don't die of heat stroke. We find the leak, and I go do my first job. And this first job is the only job I did all day. And the guy tells me all the things going on with the house, and I just start writing things down. Keep on going, sir. And then I talk to him for about another hour while I'm doing the job because he's getting ready to sell a $1.3 million house. You have that response right there, that low whistle.
Right.
But when you have your clientele, most of your clientele can afford you, and they can afford an Audi payment or a Mercedes Benz. And so money doesn't really affect you after you're rubbing against it all the time.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I kind of grew up rich, but I'm poor now, which is kind of funny. So when
Yeah.
you say rags to riches, I was like, I went from rich to rags. So it's a different
It's
side of
your
the
and
same
it's
coin.
your option to stay there economically.
Oh, I'm doing I got a few things going on right now that's going to get me out of it, but
Yeah,
I got a few more years until I'm no longer completely financially responsible for my daughter.
yeah. And I don't think she's holding you back at all. I think what it is just that you want to make sure that you have the time available if something should happen that she can call on you and you
Yeah.
can answer. You can be there for her. She's gonna suck between ages 18 and 28, dude. I'm just
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
18 and 28 was the worst part of my adulthood. Even though I was living with my parents for the most part time, and then I was moving out and about and trying different things and trying different jobs, which would make you have different living arrangements. Um, my worst fights were when I was 18 and 25. But in my 40s, I got to say that, like, especially now, where like this job, I'm at this $1.3 million house, which isn't really much. It was like a 4-bedroom house with a guest house attached to it. And he's got a problem with his septic line from the guest house to the septic tank. And I know how we can fix it. And I threw out a number and he let me continue. I'm like, okay, cool. This guy says after that, he's like, I just want to get everything ready. I don't want to have any surprises. He said, I don't want you to have a problem here. I want people to be able to use a shitter. I want people to be able to use a shower. And I don't need you to have any problems before you move out. And he took that. We shook hands and he signed me a check for $3,800. Friday was like my best day at my job I've ever had. And
Right.
my grandpa Ralph and I talked about this because my grandfather Sam Lombardo we didn't really talk much because he never went through the things I went through, so we didn't talk much. I would try to explain my jobs to him, and all he was a mechanic, and then later he was stocking shelves at Farm and Fleet, and He was happy to do those things. He was great at being a mechanic. He was wonderful at it. But whenever Decatur started going downhill, he didn't have a choice. He had to take what job he could get. So he was always thinking I'd be best for retail. And I'm like, I can't stand being inside a store for 8 hours a day, dude. I'm sorry. And I've tried that numerous times. I mean, I worked at Walmart for a bit up on Allen Road.
You
And
have some of the best stories. I have to say, for those of you who are watching this, the best story that came out of there is this, Bruce told was it's nothing like what was it cleaning waxing the floor when there's no one else in that store. You go into the toy section,
mm-hmm.
and all little creepy dolls are like, "Hello," or however the hell you did
They
that.
have little animated dolls in the toy section. They fucking animate and light up and do shit. My fucking store manager was like doing stuff to me and some of the others, seeing who was spooked by superstition and such. Like, bitch. We had a lot of fun there. You know, we had a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
It's sad that that job didn't pay more, because I could have stayed in Illinois if I was paid more than $500 a week. And there's a lot of people I know that when they hear that, they're like, that's low. And this is back in 2011 in an area that's economically worsening, and it didn't really get much better. I hate to say it. I wanted it to get better. I tell people all the time, when I was in Illinois, leaving Illinois was the hardest thing for me. And it's mainly for the fact that I didn't expect to fail, you know, and that's something that maybe we could make the entire crux of this program about. You know, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not get what you want. It's okay to have jobs fall through. Aren't the one that's causing the economic downturn in your home state. You know, when you now have to ride this miserable train of shit, you know, with a $700 a month food bill and, you know, increased electricity costs, you know, it's not your fault all this stuff is happening. So keep your head about you and keep your head on a swivel. But whenever you're fighting all this and you're putting yourself through this, you want to have a plan. If you can't make it better where you're at, where can I go where I can live better and happier? And just keep that in your sleeve if things go south, like what they did with me, because I wasn't expecting in March to be talking with Zach. And Zach's talking to me about working for him at the gas station 3 miles down the road. I'm like, this is really not a good career opportunity for me. I don't really like the idea of being at a gas station in the middle of nowhere and having some serial killer come shoot me in the middle of the night. That's all I can think of. When I talked to my parents about this, my mother, God bless her, she's not Jewish. Oh, well, like 4% of her is. But she's got this part that she can put fear and guilt in you with a look. It's amazing.
All right.
I don't know what sort of witch she is, but I mean, she's got this ability. And whenever I started talking about this, she's immediately against me working at a fast food place or at a gas station at the age of 36. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing well at Walmart. I'm losing money. You and Dad are having to buy my food. I'm barely able to cover rent and electricity. And I'm falling apart. You know, I don't know what I'm doing here. And Jackie and I talked not long after that, and I moved down to Texas. And I was mending my body mentally. I was getting myself fixed. And it would have been a lot easier if I had done this as a young man, because maybe I could have been an escape mechanism for other people in my family to move down here. Grandparents could have moved down or something like that. And I could have, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I moved down at the age of 36 and started working in the oil field, which I stayed in until I was 44.
Right.
And I loved it, you know. And even last Tuesday, Liberty Oilfield Services called me, and they were asking me about, you know, if I'd want to come out and talk to them. And I know that there's no just come out and talk to them. There's an offer on the table, and they're trying to get people staffed. And Bruce Lombardo has a fucking hazmat, which is $120,000 a year in some places in Texas to start in the frack industry. The other places only 80,000. But I mean, if you know your worth, if you know what you're doing, you can make your money. You can be useful. And man, on this phone with this guy, I'm kind of happy with my life. I've started being a plumber, and I'm going to milk this job I've got because it's going to provide me money. And the owner and I get along really well. It's only 5 people in the company, so we all know each other pretty well. None of us, we've never drank together. Okay. Like usually when I've got a boss and we're in good with each other, like that's in the oil field, like you're stuck out at a hotel, you're gonna go get your feel good juice and you're gonna come back to the hotel and you're gonna probably drink with your boss. Like
Right.
it's different, you know. In the Navy you have that happen a little bit. You drink with your officer friends a little bit, but most of the time on bigger ships or on ships bigger than a frigate, you don't really have the officers hanging out with the enlisted. On a mine countermeasure ship, it's like a small town. No matter what the Navy wants to say, the officers are there with the enlisted because you have maybe 20 people at the most in a division. You know, you might have 18 people in engineering, you might have 23 in deck division, which is the guys that worry about all the paint chipping, all the sides of the ship and getting everything ready. Should we have a problem with weather, we have to get the ship set for heavy weather rigging, or if we have to do a mail call out at sea. 2 ships sometimes will pull up alongside each other, and you'll fire a line from one ship to another, and they'll set up a point where you have a line that runs a crate from one ship to another. We tried this once. My boatswain mate, second class, Halderman, had part of his hand ripped off because when he was
Oh, fuck.
in the line, his hand went away. Well, I wasn't there. I was on the aft part of the ship. I was aft lookout god. I was an expert at aft lookout. If you ever steal my shit from Bupers out of DC, you'll see that I have a really good aft lookout checklist. I mean, I've seen almost everything except for incoming torpedo and incoming missile and incoming fire. I've not seen those things. Everything else, like I could give you ranges down to like 100 yards on other contacts or buoys or whatever we were selling by. The ops people were always, they get bored. Let's ask Bruce how far away this is. But I saw a guy in the aftermath get his hand ripped off, and that was messy, blood everywhere. We got him a tourniquet, and then we had the Ticonderoga, which was like sailing a mile ahead of us. They sent their bird in the air, and they picked up Halderman and took him off to Liazores to get fixed up. And then we met up with him, Brest, France, but he was foobar.
Right.
That was like, I guess, you know, I don't know if you've had this in other streams. You only had one other guest do 2 streams with you, but the measure of success for the officers is always by how few safety incidents do you have. Like Eugene Lucky Flucky, submarine commander of the USS Barb, he sank a train. His battle flag's got like 40 fucking things on it. There's actually about 200 things he sunk, but they don't have them all listed on the battle flag because he sank a train. That's all I'm going to say. Just look up the Barb. The fat electrician can help you on your knowledge, and you look that up. And during that entire time, he was working as a sub commander on his 5 tours. They never had a Purple Heart situation. Nobody ever got wounded. Okay, that's the measure of success for anybody in charge, and the military puts a special emphasis on that during any peacetime operations, because during peacetime there's even less money to go around. If somebody gets hurt, people in Washington ask, well, what the fuck's going on this ship over here? And they get really involved, and you don't want that. You don't want that involvement. You don't want that level of people peering in on you. Well, when I'm working in the oil field, it felt like I was back on the Defender for a bit, because when we get done with work, we just kind of, unlike the Defender, you never are done with work. You just are given time to where you go to sleep. There's still work to do, but you get to go to sleep. The sun's down. And so you've been up for like 20 hours and you get 3 hours of sleep a night. And you just live like that for months until you hit a port and you can fucking like have a Liberty Day. And instead of you going out and getting drunk at a bar, you decide, I'm going to take a nap. and that lasts you like an extra 5 or 6 hours, and it's the greatest
I,
feeling.
you know, I never served, but I've had a few jobs where, hey, it's your day off. What you planning on doing today?
Fuck
Sleeping.
you, I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that is. And we have this mentality in the oil field where like it felt like I was back in the military again, and I was seeing it. And at the same time that my grandfather died, my job was wrapping up its work with us because they were getting ready to fire us all. Not fire, lay us off. And we had the opportunity to come back if we so choose to fill an application out. Fuck you. Just go fuck yourself, And like C&J died. C&J Energy Services died for a lot of reasons. You see a lot of cocaine use out of that company, and there's a lot of companies in the oil field where like you go to work and your boss gets kind of hijacked by a company man, and then like he comes back with white powder around his nose, and like we're just gonna work. We're gonna blow through this oil well. We're gonna do all the stages as quick as we can, and you do like all the work that you shouldn't be doing. That should be there for like 10 days, but you're doing it in 7 or 6, and you have guys getting hurt all the time.
Yeah.
And I tell people like, hey, listen, we shouldn't be pushing ourselves like this because all it's going to do is cause us real issue with HR. You're going to have guys that get hurt or killed, maybe.
OSHA.
Yeah, and it's just it starts a bad revolving door. So we see that, and we're working with C&J Energy Services. I oversaw a kid one day for about 2 hours. He was my trainee, and then they took him from me. His name was Joshua Salazar. He died in 2012 on either Halloween or October 30th. I can't remember which, but he was my trainee, and I was working with him, and I was showing him things about pumps. He had worked the night before, but nobody told me that. And I said, well, for this being your first day, you're doing pretty good here. He's like, well, I've been here a couple days. I said, oh, all right. We just came back from days off.
Yeah.
And I met this kid working with me, and he's pretty okay. He's fit, and he's grabbing stuff like he's a pro. And I'm like, all right, well, let me show you. Just slow down. He was like, man, I just want to stay moving. Well, I didn't catch that, because what that means is if I don't stay moving, I'm going to get the fatigue hitting me, and I'm going to go to sleep.
Oh, no.
Well, safety comes up to me, Carlos, not really a good safety guy. Carlos says, Bruce, I need you to give me Joshua. I said, no, he's mine for the day. He's in my shadow. Well, Bruce, we need him. No, you fucking don't. He's mine. And then my boss comes over. Bruce, let Carlos have your guy. Okay, we'll work with him tomorrow. He seems like he knows what he's doing. I'm like, okay, I'll have him work with me on chemicals tomorrow. No big deal. They send this kid from Cotulla, Texas, which is on 35 South, between Laredo and San Antonio. They sent him down this twisting little highway that's kind of a hilly highway too, at that, down 624 back to Corpus Christi, Robstown.
Right.
And he died. He 18-year-old kid, and he passed. He got into a van, a single vehicle accident, and he just lost control, lost consciousness, and he passed the fuck out.
Shit.
And so about maybe a month goes by, and we're putting things together on this, and I tell my boss, like, listen, here's the situation of what happened. You wanted me to write you a document. Here's your document. Person that blamed for this is going to be our safety guy, Carlos, and then Orly, because Orly is the one that was over Carlos. Both those men told me to relinquish, the custody of my safety kid, of my new green hat, to him. You guys put him behind the wheel. He was up the previous day, and he stayed on job for 36 hours straight, awake, not taking a nap. And then he said to me, I just want to stay moving. And I didn't catch that. And it didn't hit me until later, as Magic Mike, we called him, because that was the movie that was out at the time where, everybody gets a nickname.
I could start fighting some places. Okay.
Oh, I'll tell you about Magic Mike here in just a second. Well, Magic Mike tells us that this kid died, and I'm just kind of like, what? And then we do another set of stages, and then the Veep shows up, the vice president of the company, and he gathers us there, and he tells us, "Hey, listen, we're going to send you guys back to the hotel. Don't anybody get stupid or loopy, but we need to have a day where we remember Josh. This is the day that he tells us that this kid died." And I'm just kind of like, I've never had this happen. I'm 37 and never had somebody that was my responsibility die. And it was just one of those moments where I went back to the hotel room, and everybody in my direct line of command up to Booyah came to my hotel room or called the hotel room the next 8 hours asking me if I was okay, because my roommate was kind of wigging out. He's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Not really, but I'll be fine. I'll just let me process this." And he didn't understand that because, he's not from my culture. He's from down there. And I'm just like, I just need to be let alone and I'll be fine. I don't even have any alcohol with me. I don't have my sidearm with me. In fact, at the time, I don't even think I owned a gun. I had a lot of knives. And I'm just like, I just want to process this and, pray for the kid and pray for the family. And that's about it. And about a month went by, and I wrote the document of how I remembered the day's events. And that really didn't help me out keeping that job. I was never on the good side of the company after that because I told the truth. And Carlos, I don't know whatever happened to him. I heard he passed later on. He did a self-inflicted gunshot wound, which I'm not regretful for. I wanted him to be sorrowful for being responsible for Joshua's death, because he was not really the originator of this entire ordeal. He's just the first one that came to me that said, "I need to give the kid up." It wasn't his idea, and it wasn't really Orly's either. Orly's still alive. He's got 2 kids that are the focus of his life, and he's doing all right. But this kid, out of one bad call, now 2 of them are gone.
Right.
That's just when you're facing that. All I could really think of is that no matter what happens, I've got to go to work tomorrow. They don't have to worry about this shit anymore. We got this. But Joshua would have wanted us to go frack our asses off, which we did. And then not too long after that, we had some things switch up, and me and Dwayne had to rotate hotel rooms, and we have this mysterious bag of clothing. It's fucking Joshua's bag of clothing they stuffed in a closet. Nobody told us this.
Fuck off, people.
Yeah. So I got on Facebook, and Dwayne messaged the father of Josh, and the father came and gave us both about as much of a brotherly hug as he could, because he's like, 2 months outside of his son's death. And we stayed in Cotulla for about 2.5 months total.
Right.
We were living there. We would go to work for 12 hours a day in the hot ass sun. This is in the run up. We had like 90 or 92 days of 100 degrees in Texas, all like a consecutive period of time. Just misery, and you're standing on the deck of the fucking trucks, and it's like 140 degrees trying to work out there on the pumps. So you inhale a lot of water, and you don't really stop drinking the whole time. You swap water for beer when you get to the hotel, and that's about as good as your life gets. So we had that, and then we talked about things with C&J a little bit longer, because that became an issue where like it came out that Salazar came to the hotel and got us some stuff, and like Human Resources was supposed to do that. Well, Human Resources dropped the fucking ball, and I don't know what the hell happened. My cousin worked in Human Resources, but even she was just aghast with all the shit that was going on, and he wasn't the only one that died there. There was like 20 people that died in 2012 alone working for this company. and it was not a safe company. There's a very good reason why it got bought out and all of its assets purchased by another company. Now it's called NextYear. And you learn things when you're in the oil field, when you have to work with these degenerates that have positions of power, and they act like this is my little fiefdom. Don't you fuck with me. This is everything I've ever wanted, and you're not going to fuck this up. And you just kind of like put your head down, and like I just want to go home and do my job and have a good paycheck and repeat that. So you just put up with it. But sometimes these people, they have their little fiefdoms, which are just really uh, it's almost criminal with the amount of corruption that could happen within a company or within just a small organization of people. And you have between that, you got the fact that your company drivers are ferrying cocaine all over the fucking place, and they're delivering that to job sites, and you got your guys, getting just out of their gourd with the fucking company men. It That's the oil field, and there might be people that would be like, "Oh, that's bullshit, Bruce." Okay, fine, but there's plenty of times where we saw cocaine on the noses of our bosses, and that was just something that you deal with because, like, all right, well, I guess I'm working here. And then when you tell people in other parts of the oil field, or if you go to a restaurant, and you see guys in an outfit, like they ask you, "Hey, you work for C&J?" "Yeah, I do." "Is it true they call it Cocaine Junction there?" And you kind of look at them like, "Yeah, it is." And that's just but that's not the only place like that. That's basically the whole oil field, because you have it ran by young guys that have never had $100,000, $200,000 job before, and they get this bad idea like, I'm going to burn all my money instead of save, invest, buy property and stuff. I'm just going to push it right up my fucking nose, and you'll have people that they never get done with that addiction. They discover it, and it gets a hold of them, and they're really very destructive to themselves and for those that are close around them.
Right.
And being outside of that environment now for over 3 years here, yeah, this month, um, being outside of it for 3 years, it's been one of the healthiest changes in my life I've ever had. Because while I was with money all the time, I could reach in my pocket $1,000, $1,500, whatever I want to do, bam, go do it. But since then, I've learned value of things and value of time and value of my own self. And more importantly, I kind of came into my own with my job. And, this is kind of like a career I want to stay in, because as crazy as it sounds, if I had land and a compost pile that I was just having people dump into, and I would have a few guys mixing it up for me so I could just sell compost. Thanks for dumping your 3,000 gallons of shit, 5,000 gallons of shit, or whatever, and then mix that up a few days later, and now I have ready to go compost. I could make the money coming and going. I have to wait for the market to finally get its head out of its ass. But when it's being manipulated from Washington, and the rest of the global markets are fucked over as is by the WEF, we won't agree on that probably, but we might. But the thing is that if you look at the financial markets, they're being manipulated.
I'm not going to say that they're not. I mean, I need to look into it. I'm not going to say that we are going to disagree, and I'm not going to say that we won't disagree. But you look into it.
It took me a lot of years to get myself going, and I think I probably hurt myself by going in the military instead of just going in a trade. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a kid, so the Navy was a great choice. And it gave me focus. It gave me the assistance I needed in my head to learn how to work hard. Because high school doesn't teach you how to work hard. Being with the grandparents on a hot afternoon, chopping wood, will teach you how to work hard. Having a dad that gives you a lawnmower and says, "You want to buy a computer, you got to earn it. Go out and sell your services and make this town mowed nicely and get customers." That'll help you learn it, And
yeah.
I think the military, like being around certain elements of it, being around certain people, especially in the time where it was a little bit of irregular reserve or stuff like that, like there were some aspects where I felt like I had joined up with a bunch of kids and I mentally regressed for a bit. It wasn't really until 2012 where I started being able to educate myself, thanks to YouTube and smartphone and broadband phone technology, that I was able to really actually put my brain into something other than neutral gear. because I feel like I've learned a lot in the last 10 years, which I didn't have access to before. And it's kind of amazing that when you finally have an absolute resource to where you can do studies and you can formulate your own opinions, you can study markets, and you can figure out where you can position yourself to be in a spot to where you will financially prosper, which is why I moved to San Antonio from Corpus. I didn't want to be in Corpus because it wasn't growing at the rate that would be livable for me. That town doesn't have a lot of other functions aside from being a refinery and shipping town. And even though they're in the port, it's not turning into a community that I want to live in.
Yeah, this place can get sketchy fairly quick.
Yeah, Corpus Christi can get real sketchy. It's ran by like 5 families, and it sounds so stereotypical, but these families kind of control that entire town. And they had an opportunity in 2012 to have Carnival Cruise Lines come in and give them $5 million to help fix their port area, because Carnival says, "Oh, you're getting ready to redo your port bridge so you can have bigger ships come in. That's awesome. We're going to give you money to help you build retail offices and make it attractive for Carnival to port their ships here." And fucking Corpus Christi said no.
What?
They said no. They said no to free money because they couldn't control the money coming in, and they couldn't control where it was coming from. So they said no. So yeah, when I moved to San Antonio is a little bit more of a progressive city, not to my extreme excitement, but it's a very progressive city, and it does a lot of things right in the aspect where they're very aggressive and incorporating small areas outside of it into the city proper.
Right.
You could drive down 37 right now from downtown, and after you hit 410, it turns into kind of like this grassy prairie grass area, and you'll see this sign out of nowhere now exiting San Antonio. It's been like 7 miles since you saw a fucking Shell station, since you saw a piece of like town. You go past that sign, and then like right around the corner, there's the old Baker Hughes oil field building, which is a multi-million-dollar headquarters for this region that Baker Hughes is selling back on the market again, because this is not where they want to be. This was when it was an oil field town 10 years ago, because you had oil field hit really hard here, and they were putting everybody that wanted a job with a job. You just had to put up with the bullshit, and you could. It was fairly easy. Like I go to work, I put my head down, and I do this. Or maybe you're like Bruce, where like I cause a scene, and I shouldn't probably, but I kept the job because I had the accreditations that they needed. Like, he's got a hazmat. We're going to keep this kid, and that was something that CJ told the diversity hire out of Pleasanton, and it pissed him off. He's like, this guy he insulted me. Well, yeah, that's what he does. If you can't handle that, are you supposed to be here? Because we're all adults, and if you can't handle how adults talk to each other, maybe you need to go back to Houston. And that was where our corporate headquarters is. Excuse me for a moment and suck down some of this very fine tang. So it took me a while to get myself in gear, and I hate to say that, but the story ends on a mostly positive note. Here, when you're getting older, and good luck to you in your late 30s going into your 40s, because you're going to see this with your family. You're going to be doing something, and you're going to get a phone call about a relative. And if you live close by, it's kind of a blessing, because you had an opportunity to be around them, even though you might not have been as much as you wanted to, or how much you will want to when they're gone. But with that, that most of our families don't play these games. Most of our families don't share the love for this hobby that we do. It just wasn't. Yeah. And the thing is that I'm going to continue staying in this hobby because I love it. I love the fact that I can sit down and call 6 or 10 people and have an 80% rate to getting them to where we're going to sit down and share some hours together and be able to spend time playing the games in this hobby the way you want to. And that's something that I don't know many other people that do that. I don't know many other people that say my hobby does this. Because this hobby is driven by the ability for you to get butts and seats. And if you can't get butts and seats, like I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of people that they fail at this hobby because they they don't understand, like, well, I can't get along with these guys. I'm going to piss off this group of players because I'm going to run exclusively a system that these people don't want to play. And I don't understand how to explain it to them, but like, maybe you don't want to go at it like I'm running a 5e game. Maybe you should go at it like I want to run a game where I have people show up week after week and we have a multi-tiered set of story arcs that have a potential to wrap themselves up and lead to more adventures later on down the road.
Right. No, I
And
completely agree.
that's something that maybe, you know, we should be focusing on more as a hobby. Like we need to teach the young kids how to keep butts and seats, because 6 adventures does not make, or 6 sessions together does not make a campaign.
No,
And
it does not.
it's even worse when you talk to people that don't even get that, because they get so irritated that, like, oh, I've got to get another group. I've got another campaign I want to start, but this group I have right now, there's only one person in it. I get it, what are you doing wrong? And that's something that, the one thing about the hobby, about D&D, about tabletop role playing, that I can take to any endeavor is that I don't have fear or anxiety when I talk to a stranger. That's one thing I don't feel anymore. I don't feel threatened when there's a kid trying to throw like his chest out like he wants to beat my ass in public. I don't worry about anything. I just if I have to talk with somebody, I talk to somebody. I haven't ran from a fight in years, and I got my ass beat really good in 2017 by a guy that outweighed me by about 100 pounds. It's pretty much solid muscle. And I got a couple scraps on him. He said, for being a short guy, he didn't expect me to stay in it that long. He thought I was going to like give up, and I just didn't. And I don't know if my cousin has photos of me from that night, from the day after, but like my face was black and blue. My eye was purple. I mean, I looked fucked up. And I got some respect out of that guy because he's like, he didn't knuckle. He didn't give up. He kept on trying to defend and then coming out with counterattacks, but he wasn't that good of a fighter. Well, no, I'm not. I don't box. I wrestle. I grab limbs. I try to suplex. And when you're trying to out wrestle a guy that outweighs you more than 100 pounds, you're gonna come out. This guy could have played amateur ball. He was good.
Yeah.
Me by about 10 years. So he had a lot of advantages. We had a bad day at work. And I will tell you that if you're going to get into a fight, get into a fight. The bruises leave. Your body heals. It's better to stand up for yourself than to knuckle down and to let somebody think that they can lord over you, whatever it is. But that was just at a job that, like, all of us left that job because there was no future there. We were paid stupidly well, but the equipment was in bad shape. And you go to work and somebody's getting hauled off in an ambulance is like a regular occurrence for about a month before they just shut that entire branch down. And that was kind of a scary thing. Like, you go to work, like, I think hopefully today I don't get killed by the pressure. Hopefully the pipes don't rip apart and cause a concussive blast and knock me 30 feet off in one single direction. Hopefully I land softly and not up against that piece of metal and impale myself on it. And you have real dangerous environments, and some people, they don't see anything but the money they're making. And that was my issue, was the fact I even worked there. There was people that were going to work because they were fatigued and they didn't get to work because they died on the way to work, or they died on their way going home after a 14-hour night. So you have to, we had this job, and it was just a bunch of guys that they all hated their existence. We really just, I'm surprised there weren't more fights there, but everybody else would like talk shit And then whenever it came time to throw down, let's go over here. Let's go behind these tanks. Come on. There ain't no cameras. Stop being a bitch. And not many people would want to do that. In fact, one of the bosses said, I'm surprised for that fat fucker Lombardo, like he came out of there, but at least he took a beating and he didn't really bitch about it. And then one other guy tried talking smack, and I'm like, I can go back behind there again. I don't care if I get my ass beat. I'm already in pain. You can put me in more pain. That's fine, but it's just pain. I've got Advil here. I've got alcohol in my apartment. I can be fine. I'll be here tomorrow too. And he didn't want to go with it because he wanted to, keep his image. He didn't want to get his ass beat by a guy that already had his ass beat.
I get it. I understand. I mean, yeah, I've got my ass beaten a few times, but that's just the nature of the nature of the situation.
The situation of all, and that's the only good thing about that job that I had working for Pumpco was the fact that we at least were free to do that. In most modern society, if you have a problem with somebody, all you're doing is throwing barbs on the internet or you're flipping each other off in traffic. And whenever you pull over to like, come on, let's settle this like men. Let's do the man dance. They drive off because they're scared. They're like, just don't be scared. Just get into the fight, get it over with, because otherwise you're going to talk about it for 2 days and this girl's going to be pissed off hearing this bullshit story. Just get the fight over with. And men used to be able to do that. There used to not be such a propensity for the mentality where men were not willing to get hurt. And there's so many people out there that are scared to get a punch landed on their face. After that first punch hits you, go for it. Get it.
Yeah.
Because it's not really going to get better, but it will get a lot better once it's over, no matter if you win or lose. It's just a fight. And that's the main advice I have from being at that shitty job. But for young people, if there's young people listening, like, find yourself something you want to do that's going to make you money. Figure out how you can do it really well so you can make more money than most people in that trade. Excel at it. Get your name out there. It's going to take you years to get great, but it's going to be a whole lot easier if you do that the honest way than if you do something the wrong way.
That is more than fair. That is good advice. It is 2:07. We've done this for 2 hours and 7 minutes, I should say. I think I got all the questions answered that I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Do you have any? Is there any gaps or anything?
No. I think that covers it up. I mean, slightly. We can always do this later on. Do another episode later on. Kind of curious how your gaming life down in Tennessee. I mean, not Tennessee, Kentucky was. When did you meet, like, say, Chris or Joe? But we can wait. That can wait down the road, and that could be a whole different, topic for conversations. But other than that, you've answered everything I wanted you to, and I appreciate your time for doing this with me. Thank you very, very much.
I'd like to thank your chat group, the people that came in here to listen to us. And all this really is just two guys talking about their various experiences in life and such. Listen, without you guys in chat, this would be just like a small private conversation. But hopefully there was something that Connell or I said that if you guys can carry this on and you can kind of spread some knowledge among your friends or family, if you can give good advice, or if there was some piece of advice that we said during this stream that echoes in you later, and you're able to pass it on, don't worry if you think you're going to butcher it up, because I learned one thing doing what I do now. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You could have the worst product available, but if that person likes you and that person sees that you're trying to do something that's going to better them, that's going to improve their current situation, be if it's, you're fixing an electrical outlet, or if you're a plumber like me, if you're there and they've settled on you because they figure that there's something about you that maybe that someone else didn't have when they were doing estimates or they were doing a discussion. If you're that guy, and it doesn't take a whole lot of determination to be like, I'm going to help these customers and make this cash. If you're that guy, you're not going to fail. You're going to have a lot of times where you're going to have lessons learned. But with all those lessons, I'm going to tell you that it's going to better you because it's going to give you more experience and it's going to give you more opportunity. 90% of you being successful is just listening to other people. I even go with 95%. And the 5% of the time you're really successful, you're not saying anything completely original. You're regurgitating something you heard from somebody else, be it a class or a sermon or a seminar. But you've got knowledge that you're retaining that somebody else at some point will need. If your friend calls up at 2 a.m. and they're telling you something like, I'm not feeling well, I'm thinking about blowing my head off, here's why. It sucks for you being woke up at 2 a.m., but it would suck worse for you if you woke up at 6 and they were gone. Give somebody that time. You might be the one thing that keeps him from going absolutely nuts and off the deep end.
That's really good advice. Well, from my home to Bruce's home and everybody's houses in between, I hope everybody have a good Saturday. Hang out with your family. Go roll some dice if you decide to play tonight. I'd like to play tonight, but I've got to wait till next Saturday. But the wait is worth it. And I want to say thank you again to Bruce. Thank you to chat and future people who end up watching this video. Subscribe and like the video. And I have a couple people that might be up next. I don't quite know yet, so I will announce it as soon as I know. You guys will know. And as I said, everybody have a good weekend and have a safe week ahead.
Have a great night, Multi-Gun Man. Thank you and God bless, sir.